Positivism, the social science research paradigm. What is it all about? Well, if positivism was a high school clique, it would be the science geeks. In this video, I'm going to break that all down. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley, and I've spent the last 20 years trying to demystify some of academia's impenetrable technical jargon around theory. Some of the books and the journal articles within the academic literature around research paradigms do a fantastic job of making this topic completely inaccessible. I am on a mission to crush all of that and to help people get to grips with paradigms, because they are nowhere near as complicated as they might first appear. So what are paradigms? Now, I'm not going to go into loads of detail about this in this video, but if you do want a bit of a deeper dive, check out the video that's appearing on the screen now. So that video's there if you want to watch it, but for now, let's just have a brief overview. So a paradigm is kind of like a research culture. And within that culture, there are particular beliefs, particular values, particular ways of thinking and doing research. And I think they've got quite a lot in common with high school cliques, those little gangs of kids who've all got something in common. They've all got a particular set of values that they subscribe to. They've all got their unique culture, their own way of doing things. Now, despite their differences, these cliques, they've all got things in common. So the cliques in high school, they all want to get through high school. They all want to complete high school. The cliques in social research, they all want to explain and understand the social world. But they'll all go about doing that in slightly different ways. All of the different cliques in high school will have different ways of coping with the ups and downs of high school life. The different research cliques, they all have their very own unique ways of explaining and understanding the social world. And the high school cliques analogy is one that I find really helpful for thinking about three of the main paradigms in social research: positivism, interpretivism, critical realism. The positivists are very much like the science geeks in high school. Their focus is on quantifiable data, it's on hard facts, it's on objective truth. The interpretivists are kind of like the artsy creative clique. And this reflects their interest in people's stories, people's meanings, people's subjective experiences. And lastly, the critical realists, who do align quite neatly with the social justice activist kids in high school. And they're committed to uncovering those structures that result in inequalities. They're committed to social justice. So all three of these research paradigms are concerned with explaining and understanding the social world, but they're going about that in different ways. They're differing in their assumptions about the social world. They each come along with a very distinctive approach to doing research, to collecting data, to analysing data, to making sense of what that data means. So whether a researcher's stance is positivist, interpretivist or critical realist is going to have a huge impact on a variety of things, which essentially can be boiled down to how they design and conduct their studies and how they interpret and evaluate their findings. So let's get into positivism. So as I've said previously, if positivism was a high school clique, they would be the science geeks. Positivism is kind of like the scientific superhero of research paradigms, armed with the scientific method, observing, measuring and testing to uncover all of those mysterious things about the social world. So let's take a look at its core principles. First up, positivist ontology. It can be helpful to think of ontology as the what question. So when we take a step back and we look at the social world, what are we seeing? And those who sit within the positivist paradigm tend to take a realist stance on ontology. They see the social world kind of like a hotel. It's just there. It exists independently of us. It's relatively stable and fixed. And in the same way that the hotel doesn't really change just because we're staying in it, positivists believe that the social world doesn't really change just because we're researching it. Positivists are of the view that the social world is a reality. It is out there. It is unaffected by our perceptions of it, by our interpretations of it. It's still there, whether we study it or not. Now let's take a look at positivist epistemology. And here we're talking about the how question. So ontology is about the what question. When we look at the social world, what do we see? Epistemology is about the how question. So how do we then go about researching that social world? So positivists are all about being objective. They're interested in what we can see, what we can count, what is there to be discovered. It's about concrete evidence. It's about observable facts that everybody can see. It's all about what we can see, what we can observe, what we can record. They aim for objectivity, striving to stay neutral and separate themselves from their research. This means leaving personal biases and personal opinions at the door and just focusing on empirical data. And positivists love numbers, they love the quantifiable. The stuff that can be counted, the stuff that can be measured, that's the stuff that's real. They turn their observations into data, they crunch numbers. And they do this to uncover patterns or rules that govern the social world. And the name for this particular type of epistemology is positivist. So positivists adopt a positivist epistemology. So I guess that's an easy one to remember. And in positivism, it's the researcher who's viewed as the expert. They're employing their knowledge and their expertise to design studies, to collect data, and to interpret the results. The emphasis is very much on objectivity and detachment. The researcher is authoritative, they are neutral, they're trying to have as minimal impact on the research process as possible. They are essentially a research instrument. And research participants are pretty much seen as subjects to be studied. And their role is essentially confined to providing the data that the researcher then interprets and analyses. Positivists are all about the scientific method, observing, measuring and testing to uncover the truths, the objective realities of the social world. Let's now take a look at some examples of positivist research from the Chicago School. The Chicago School of Sociology conducted numerous positivist studies at the beginning of the 20th century, mostly about the urban environment and social phenomena within the urban environment. Researchers within the Chicago School collected quantitative data using things like surveys and analysis of census data, and they also got involved in mapping particular parts of the city. So they were aiming to measure and quantify things like crime rates and migration patterns. Essentially what they were trying to do was identify correlations and causal relationships within urban environments. So what are the factors that cause this particular phenomenon? What are the factors that are associated with this particular phenomenon, like a rise in crime rates, for example? Examples include Shaw and McKay's work about juvenile delinquency in Chicago neighbourhoods. Shaw and McKay were among the first researchers to look at why crime happens more in some areas than it does in other areas. And it sounds like such an obvious thing to say now, that some areas of cities, some areas of towns have higher crime rates than others. But the Chicago School started to actually study this scientifically using a positivist approach and looking at, well, why is this the case? Why is it that crime in area A is way higher than crime in area B? What are the differences between them? What are some of the factors involved here? So they used maps and they collected data over several years to try and understand what was going on. And one of the things that they were finding was that this pattern of crime being higher in some areas than it was in others was something that persisted over time. And their research showed that when we're looking at crime, when we're looking at high crime rates, this isn't just about individual people being bad and making bad choices or bad decisions. This is also connected quite closely to the area that they live in, to the conditions of the area that they live in. And this was a really big deal at the time because prior to this, most people thought that people commit crime because they are just inherently bad. There is something about them as individuals that is just wrong. Then Shaw and McKay came along and they showed that where people live and the conditions that they live in also play quite a big role in terms of impacting on crime rates. So their positivist work helped us to see that crime is linked to things like living conditions and poverty and deprivation. And this means that we need to look at the people and the places to understand why crime happens. So to quickly recap. So we started this video with a quick overview of research paradigms, understanding them as cultures with shared beliefs and values. Then we took a look at ontology and epistemology through the lens of a positivist paradigm. Lastly, we explored some examples from the Chicago School. We looked at how the positivist researchers within the Chicago School used quantitative methods to uncover patterns and causal relationships. If you've got any questions or queries, drop them in the comments. Join me in the next video where we'll be taking a closer look at interpretivism. I'll see you then.